Hey, it's your boy Hendo checking Hendo coming to y'all with another video. Today we got pretendians. We so sick of these damn pretendians, but you know I'm not gonna waste your time. Like, comment, subscribe, hype this video up if you can, and let's get into the content.
All right, racists.
You are not true Aboriginal Americans if your only proof of Indigenous roots is a 23andMe DNA test, or a tribal card that is no more significant than a school ID.
All right, colonizer.
Wait, did he just show a Red Lobster kids meal placemat of Turtle Island?
Consider the fact that they're denying their African roots with their own self-hate. And that's why they're giving the African community a bad name. And with that said, feel free to try again next time.
Okay, consider this video the next time. So first off, thank you so much for this laugh. And also thank you for the confirmation. As you can see here, folks, he had plenty of time to show his ancestry. But instead, what did he choose to do with his video? He focused on Indigenous Black Americans. Well, since we won't be getting any ancestry from you, the actual pretendian, I'll show you my husband's genealogy, and I will put on display just how silly you look. Elizabeth Cooey was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and she was born before the first census. She collected a pension from her husband being a soldier who fought in the Indian Wars of 1812, and he was on record as being a slave owner, along with his wife. She owned a plantation/farm. She even employed white laborers, or what some would call slaves, all who lived with them on the property, which is why you see that free person designation on the record. Because why would you need to distinguish the difference for whites unless they weren't free at some point? Let's go further. Her mother is also a native of South Carolina. She was born in 1755, approximately 22 years before the U.S. became a country, and 36 years before the first U.S. Census. And she, too, owned land, with an American Indigenous last name, which is McBride. The McBride family name was found in the USA, UK, Canada, and Scotland between 1840 and 1920, which draws connection to the historic Moors of Europe. The most McBride families anywhere in the world were found in the US in 1880, and there are over 60,000 military records for the last name McBride. Notice the image of the people used to describe this Indigenous name? Do they look like you? I didn't think so. That, sir, is genealogy. So let's cut the bullshit and stop calling people who have actual evidence of their ancestry on this land pretendians, when it's you who are playing Reading Rainbow with a damn illustration and some performative Disney campfire voice. We are a spiritual people. Instead of fixating on Black Americans, you better go learn who you really are, because they clearly know who they are, and their truth seems to expose a lie. No Africans, no enslaved people, just people who were clearly here before the US became the US. So where is your genealogy? If you are original to this land, it would be very easy to prove. I just showed you how. Even I can show you my mestizo ancestry. So prove it. Or don't. Either way, this was checkmate. No matter which way you go, you lose. See you next time.
One thing I would say about the Black community is that we have to take the time to actually research these things. Like the Pan-African, I think both of these things can be true at the same time. Some people can be here that were brought here from Africa, or even migrated from Africa, because you got to think, Mansa Musa said that his predecessor had came over here with hundreds of ships, hundreds of gold, animals, all type of shit, brought it all over here. So if this is true and he actually made it to America, which is likely he did, or at least some of the ships, because if you left with hundreds of ships, at least some of the ships made it, right? Those people migrated from Africa to the Americas, but still were here at least 200, 300 years before Christopher Columbus. You know what I mean? So both things can be true at the same time. We have to understand, as Black Americans, we love to like tie ourselves to African DNA and African heritage. But when does that go away? Like, everybody migrated out of Africa. Everybody, we all started in Africa, migrated out of Africa. Even though the oldest fossil was found in the Americas, but the general consensus is we all migrated out of Africa, which would mean not only us, but all Europeans have African descent. They all come from Africans. So if this is the case, then what is the argument? You know what I mean? Why are we not saying you're an African? You're an African to Europeans, Jamaicans, Mexicans. You all migrated from Africa. So because after a certain period of time of them being where they were, like as, for example, being in Mexico, being in Jamaica, being in Russia, they are no longer African. They are now Russian, Jamaican, Mexican. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel like we have a problem with, it's not that I'm trying to push away my African heritage and say I have none, But what I feel like a lot of Americans, especially FBAs, are saying is that we are not just African. We are not African American. We are American. And if we were here first, we're the original Americans. And a lot of these Siberians, they lie about, they know the truth, but they lie. And they helped put us in chains. They helped steal our identity. And now that everything's going to come to the light, we'll see. But let's keep going.
So ZC Young Fly has announced that his family is a part of the Choctaw tribe. His family is from Chesterfield in Chirrut, South Carolina, by way of the Gainey family. And this is why I say genealogy is key. You need to be able to see who your ancestors are. You should be able to see their names. You should be able to see where they're buried. You should be able to see what accomplishments they were able to achieve. You should be able to see what land they may have acquired. And in this case, what tribal roles they were a part of. This is stuff that you cannot find with a DNA spit kit. I'm sorry. You're not going to actually see photos of who these people are, okay? You have to do your genealogy. And I want to say this is just the beginning. This is just popular people and celebrities coming out saying they have this ancestry, okay? When the average Black American starts to stand on their indigenous roots, it is going to shake the core of this infrastructure. It is going to shake the core of the world. All of the other rhetoric that we were taught and we were told to look to the east, look over to the Eastern Hemisphere. When we start looking here on this soil, we're going to see a major shift in political activism, okay? It has to happen. You can't keep sitting on the blood of your people and denying who they are and taking on a story and a textbook about who they say you're gonna be. Nah.
And I also want to say that I started off as a non-believer. Like, I had my cousin, one of my favorite cousins, closest cousins, he was telling me about it. He was actually staying with me at the time and was doing deep research on it. And he still does to this day. He has a whole channel. I don't know if he still posts on the channel, but he has started a whole channel that just talking about this topic. And at first I was like, damn, bro, it's so sad how niggas will not want to be who they are and want to connect to other people. And, you know what I mean, niggas. And I see a lot of people saying that, so I get where they're coming from, because I was there at one point. I was there to where I would just hear the information, be like, yeah, it sounds good, but nigga, y'all are just making shit up. Like, that's not true. That's not true. You got to look at the history books. But then I came to realize I can't keep basing history off of his story, off of the story that the winners of history decided to tell. You know what I mean? The victors always get to tell how history went. And if I know that they knocked the nose off the Sphinx, if I know that they've been whitewashing all of Black history throughout history, why would I choose to believe them on that thing? I don't believe them on anything. And I think that's a big problem. We got to stop. I'm not saying like basic science or basic history or something like that. Like Abraham Lincoln was alive. Okay, whatever. We can agree on that. But everything else they're trying to tell us, spin the narratives, slaves were freed by Abraham Lincoln, when we all know that's not true. This is where, you know, we can't trust them. We can't trust history. We can't trust these history books. We need to do it ourselves. So we got to stop pushing back on our brothers who's actually doing any type of research, even though I might not agree with it. People who are Hebrew Israelites, diving into the Bible, trying to actually backtrack the history and backtrack that we are the Hebrew Israelites. I don't subscribe to being a Hebrew Israelite, but I respect them doing that. I respect them trying to push knowledge out. You know what I mean? There's a lot of motherfuckers out here who just will down you. And I was one of them, so I get it. My cousin was telling me, I'm downing them. I'm like, bro, you are crazy. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you're Black. That's all you are, Black. Yeah, bro, why are you trying to be them people? Let them people have their identity. Then he broke out the census rolls. Then he broke out the dog rolls. Then he broke out the actual proof and facts to where I couldn't say, you know what I mean? And all it took was me sitting there listening to him. Look at what he's talking about. Running because we share the same blood, but he was going through his father's bloodline, not his mother's. We share on his mother's side. So yeah, he did a little bit on his mother's side, but he mostly was going on his father's side and finding all this Indian land and things they had. His grandfather's name was in treaties and things like that, chiefs of tribes and shit. And I'm like, wow, okay, this might be a one-off. Then he was telling me about some YouTubers he watched. I know Dave. I don't want to say his name wrong. I think it's like Dave Calloway or something like that, or it's a few of them. I don't know. It's a few of them out there who speak on this shit. And I start watching them and just picking up a little bit of the game, looking at the history they were going through, looking at the books that people don't show you, but they were actually diving through, bought the book with their own money, $1,200 for a book. That's how you know they're hiding shit in these books. But bought the book with their own money, was showing you, will read you the passage right out the book of what happened and what was going on at the time. So, you know, I just encourage anybody who's skeptical on the fence about it, do your own research, you know what I mean? And now that I'm going through my genealogy, I might run it through, but I'm seeing the same thing that my cousin was seeing, and it's crazy how they just erase this out of history. But let's keep going.
Claiming that Native Americans are actually Asians and colonizers, and that Black Americans are the real Native Americans, that is cultural erasure, and that's part of colonization.
I feel bad for this girl. I really do. She's been lied to her entire life thinking that Black Americans are actually African, but that's racist. I should know, I am racist. They only started calling Black people African Americans in the 1980s when they wanted to take their rights away even more. And it's because of propaganda like Roots made people think they were slaves. But no, that's all fake. I made a whole video showing you how slavery is fake. How are you supposed to put 200 Africans on a boat and ship them off across the sea for 6 to 8 months? No food, no water. What the fuck? There's millions of Black Americans here. How you make it out of 100 people? It's so stupid. And what do you mean they're not Siberian? Have you never seen like Siberians in Russia? They have the same fucking dances and drums. It's the same shit.
Do you know why the American government had to make Black children betray their grandparents by making them believe that they came from Africa? That's because they stole this country from us and they wanted our parents to give away the land that our ancestors owned for thousands of years. See, what they won't tell you is that when we started integrating into their schools after the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1968, they taught our parents a fake history and they started teaching them Africanism. They taught them that they came from Africa on slave ships. And if you ask your grandparents or your great-grandparents, if they're about 70 years old, Grandma, did you learn in school that you were a slave or that your people came from Africa? They will tell you no and that they didn't hear anything about that. I told my grandma this and she said, these white people crazy. They making all this stuff up.
There was a paper genocide that occurred. And there was the officials in Virginia deliberately expunged the records. They destroyed the official records and most of the private records. I mean, I've got a statement that gets into the whole thing, but basically, a lot of Virginia's ruling elite claimed to be blood descendants of Pocahontas, and in their view, that meant that no one else in Virginia could make a claim that they were Native American, a descendant of Pocahontas, because to do so would mean that Virginia's ruling elite would have to be classified as all other non-whites were, which was, in quotes, and this was the law, the inferior Negroid race. This is what it was about. And with enormous hypocrisy, Virginia's ruling elite pushed policies, got them passed, and it culminated with the Racial Integrity Act of 1924.
People have actually written over the records where it was put in that they were Indian, and someone went in and wrote Black over it. And you can actually see in censuses from time to time where they may have been Indian in the first 3 censuses, and then the last 6 of their life they're considered Black.
We are the original people of this land. We have been reclassified, but we was already living here when the Spanish, when the French, when the British came here. We've been here for thousands and thousands of years, not only in America, but in Canada, in Mexico, Central America, the Caribbeans. These people took over our lands, not only in America, but Papua New Guinea, Africa, Australia, the Pacific Islands, are the original home of people that look like us.
So Afro-indigenous people exist, and we're going to keep going over this. Afro-indigenous people are here. They've always been here, and they're not going anywhere. Afro-indigenous people, especially on this app, but in life also, are being treated worse than any other group. of people. By our people. Which, by the way, Afro-indigenous people, they're our relatives too. Don't let your traumas get in the way of mending bonds that were broken due to colonization. That's what the colonizers want you to do. Stop it. So
this idea of blood quanta, right? That you're an Indian by blood or you're a freedman, and that there could be no possible overlap. And what I would argue is that really is where the lasting violence to the descendants of slaves was done, right? Because it fully erased the history of slavery in the native nations by creating this notion that there were two totally separate peoples. It's absolutely bizarre, right? This notion that you can measure to the fraction of who you are. This idea of blood.
Native Americans aren't the real Native Americans. They put you into these whatchamacallem reservations because your ancestors took a silent oath from the Shriners. And when we read the scripture, we know that the colored people are God's real people, his real chosen people.
Wild Indian up in my veins, you know how we bleed. You ain't gotta lie about who we is, dog, just keep it G. We at war, we can't keep the peace. Since we at war, gotta keep the peace. Whack a cone, then I meditate. Should I need to breathe? Keep an Olmec head when we slide, dog, cause we the sheep. Like my niggas.
Look what they got airing in London on their news channel.
Let me explain. The current American education states African Americans were brought to America as slaves from Africa, which is simply not true. They are American indigenous, not descendants of Africans. As they say, the truth is stranger than fiction. Although this fact isn't spoken of openly, it's not a secret. However, with programming such as Roots, 12 Years a Slave, The African American Story, and The Book of Negroes, is it any wonder why so many African Americans are confused? We won't address all the misleading DNA tests being provided to connect African Americans to Africa. So, the argument is, do they continue identifying as African Americans, which is a fake identity for them, or embrace being identified as indigenous Americans?
Are there any consequences of choosing one identity over the other?
William, that's a good question. According to African Americans Ain't Africans Facebook forum, identifying as African American is to quietly relinquish ancestral connections to America. Connections that go back hundreds.
So they out here telling everybody else the truth, but not y'all. But we are trying to help y'all, and y'all don't believe us. This is our history we're talking about, our lineage. We're trying to help y'all put the pieces to y'all puzzle.
Like I said earlier, I was ignorant to the fact that our true indigenous roots. I was ignorant to the fact before, and you know, that's why I make videos like this, or make this video, is to show people that it's okay if you don't understand. It's okay if you don't believe it. It's okay if, you know, you don't care. But the thing is, at least respect your brothers and sisters out here, your Black Americans out here, who are actually trying to figure out where we come from, actually doing the work, putting in the work, reading the books, diving through the history, disproving, debunking these white folks' history. And as you can see, there's other white folks who already know. Over there in Europe, they already know. If you've seen the recent Lego videos from Iran sent their Lego video disc videos to what's called, and they did one showing Black Americans as the Indians. They know too. All these people know. They all are under a treaty. They're all under an alliance. And now that they're fighting, they're starting to be like, all right, we'll just release the information. But gotta understand, they're all under a treaty. They're all under an alliance to hide the fact that we are them chosen people. And then, if you look at a person from Gazistan, I don't even know if that's a country, but from Gizistan or wherever the fuck, no one knows who the fuck they are. Like, no diss to their culture or anything like that, but no one knows you. No one cares about you. You're not a global. No one's hating on you, nothing. Everyone across the globe hates Black Americans. Everyone across the globe use the slang used against Black Americans for any Black person in the world. Like the slur that they use to offend us, they copy and paste that to any Black person across the world. Like, we are the gold standard for Black. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm just saying that we got to be the chosen people with how much people hate us, and we ain't did shit to nobody. Like, it just don't make sense. We got to be the chosen people. If all these people know who we truly are, the aboriginals of this land, and are still trying to, you know, hide that from us, we got to be the chosen people. Like, it just don't make sense why everybody would gang up against one group of people, and then they do everything they can to oppress that group of people, and that group of people still is like a global phenomenon. Like, people still love everything we do. People still want to dress like us. People still want to copy us. People still want to be a part of our culture, meanwhile downing us and saying we have no culture. You know what I mean? Meanwhile trying to strip us from everything we have and say, no, that's not your culture, that's American culture. No, bitch, we are American culture. We are the culture. But with that being said, I appreciate y'all. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. You know what I mean? Like, comment, subscribe, hype this video up so we can get this out to more people. And I appreciate y'all. We out.